Hello, I'm Jordan Quijano.
And I'm Joseph Quijano, certified financial planner with Become the Banker. And today we have a very special guest with us today, and because we really believe in education, and we want to educate consumers today as to what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening in the economy. And Ruth, you want to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Oh,
what
absolutely.
a pleasure. My name is Ruth Vogt, and I'm actually a mortgage lender with a company called Fairway Independent Mortgage. I have been in the mortgage business since the late 70s, so trust me when I tell you I've seen a lot of markets over the years.
I believe it. And talking about just all markets in general, inflation in today's world is scary. I mean, this is something that I was just reading an article today that they said in December, inflation, it got back up to the 9% and dropped all the way down to about the high 6s, almost 7s, and that was the highest it's been since the 80s. I mean, tell me about that. That's 40 years that we're sitting at these interest rates, and I don't think we see it unless we go buy groceries, pay for gas, and unfortunately we don't talk about this enough. You know, we're not getting more income a lot of times, so our paycheck is just unfortunately dwindling down less and less when we go to pay for groceries nowadays. So that's what today's topic's about, is inflation and really how you can look for it for 2023 to make this your year and keep a close eye on what the feds do with the interest rates.
One of the best ways to fight inflation is through education. We need to understand inflation. We need to understand where inflation was many years ago, the price of goods, to be able to get ahead financially. You know, a lot of people just hide their heads in the sand and just let the economy just take them over.
Yeah.
With us, we believe in educating consumers. And today, the best way to get educated is to learn about inflation. And that is the real topic for today.
And you're spot on, Dad. I mean, we were talking about education. In today's world, we're just not taught enough. I mean, even to balance a checkbook, a basic budget, to look at mortgages, look at inflation. I mean, these are topics that the average person, we're not finding out about. Unless you're going into economics or something else, most people won't understand some of these basics. So inflation is something we all have to realize and think about it, but realize the groceries. And this is something I want to toss to Ruth here because she has a beautiful, beautiful document that really shows the history of where inflation was. Was it in the 30s, you said?
Yes, during the Depression.
Oh my gosh.
You know, it's interesting that sometimes I think in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you've been. And today what I brought is some documents that were actually kept. We're talking about what you've not been taught in school about balancing a checkbook. This was pretty phenomenal. During the time of the Depression, my grandmother actually kept ledgers that showed everything that they spent, right to the, I mean, when I say everything that they spent during the Depression time, I'm talking about how much they spent for eggs, how much they spent for flour. When the cow had a calf, there would be a document written in her ledger about Toodles had a calf today.
The detail.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
But what I find phenomenal, I mean, just look at some of this good stuff.
Yeah.
Here we've got coffee, they spent 21 cents. Candy, 10 cents. Candy was 10 cents, that had to have been a lot. Here was 20 cents to be shaved.
Are you kidding me? And so,
Lord.
I mean, just looking at something like that and gas, I mean, is that $1.35 I see there? I mean, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about inflation. I mean, this is the 30s, granted. And so we know, I mean, where dollars were different, the value of it back then to now. But at the same point,
here, I want to come back.
It's risen so much over the years.
Oh, this is funny. So you see this receipt here? It was this was 1942 that this receipt was put in here. My grandfather, if you'll notice in here, you'll see where he buys beer. She makes a notation.
Yes.
And one time he went to the grocery store, then went to the post office, then stopped off at the bar. And while he was in the bar, somebody stole the groceries.
oh my goodness.
And my grandmother was certain that he just didn't go to the grocery store. When Grandma accused him of not even going to the grocery store. He brought this receipt, and that receipt got put into the document to show that he actually did go to the grocery store before he went to the bar, and there were really groceries sitting on the front seat. So now, look here. This is in 1934, what they paid for gas. They didn't buy much meat because they also had their cattle. But she also, notice here, this was my mother when she was born. They checked out of the hospital May 27th. $25 it costs to have Mom.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that incredible?
That's remarkable that you have all
here,
this.
a few pages later, we'll even see where Aunt Marlene was born, and it was $32.
So it's
inflation.
risen.
Went up.
Inflation.
It went up.
2.5 years later.
You know what, I was looking through the entries right here with you. I noticed that beer was like 29 cents.
Oh no. Beer was like 5 cents. He bought the house around.
Oh, goodness,
that's what
okay,
it is.
okay.
If you kind of
Okay,
look through some of these
25 cents.
entries, you'll see when he has just one beer, it's 5 cents.
5
But
cents.
sometimes I think the largest entry for beer in here is probably 30 cents, and there must have
That's
been quite a few
shocking.
farmers or or help
Yeah,
that came
right.
into
Yeah.
town, and he bought a round.
Good celebration, possibly, but
But also what's fascinating is you look at the different entries on where they bought their goods. Remember the jokes about what was used for toilet paper back then? Well, that was after she went shopping for, through the catalogs.
Right.
So we might have our favorite deliveries that we use for
Yes.
today's goods. She had her favorites too that she also
see, and that's
bought
just
from.
remarkable to see all this because you said it earlier, just to see even just the cost of having a child from the difference of your mother and your aunts. How big is the age difference between your mother?
2.5 years.
So from 25 to 32, I believe is what you said.
in 2.5 years.
$7
Wow.
nowadays. I mean, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that is back then. And,
Oh, yeah.
And so when you extract that and start to say, okay, well, where are we today? I mean,
Right.
for a beer, 5 cents. I mean, we're looking at. I mean, I've seen some beers, even just a bottle. You spend $5 almost on
At
a
least,
bottle.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just shocking to see where inflation's
Wow.
gone and where it's going.
See, and here's Aunt Marlene. That was $32.
My goodness.
But there was also some great things in here that showed when he bought, let's see, the washing machine. A washing machine was $80.
Wow.
That was
That's
like
still quite a bit.
that
That's
was-
surprising.
That was very nice. That would to have the money to buy a when to have a kid is only $25.
That's
Imagine
amazing. Isn't that-
what luxuries.
Yeah,
Wow,
that's
that's a good point that you're putting there.
And look at the gas right here. $2.04.
And that's probably not for cars. That's for the vehicles for the farm.
That's amazing.
Isn't that incredible?
Now, every time I go to the gas station today, Ruth, I spend between $50 and $60 to fill up my car. And I'm looking at this, $2.04 for gas to fill up my tank for the machinery in the farm.
Are you telling me you
That's
sit there at the
amazing.
gas tank and you're just saying, when is the number going to stop? Until that number just
amazing.
stops. But I think this is another good question too, because you said they're farmers, right? And
Right.
so, was it mostly cattle? Was it anything?
They did cattle and they had chickens.
Okay.
So there were eggs and they did the cream, milk.
So looking at that, I mean, and you got to see the other side of it, right? Being on the farmer side, I mean, even probably the selling of the meat, selling of the cattle, I mean, that's probably changed tremendously over the years. I mean, unfortunately, there's so much more corporations now that run the farmer side of it. It's really, unfortunately, put a lot of farmers out of business because of that, right? But
Absolutely.
that's the sad side that we don't always see. When we're at the grocery store, we take luxuries, for what they are. Sometimes we don't realize it, and we take it for granted.
Right. It was hard. It was very hard work. My grandfather ended up getting very serious asthma as a result of developing an allergic reaction to cattle. So can you imagine that being his primary income and then
still
to have,
putting the boots on.
But the other thing too that I see in this book is that if you look at any of the large entries as you go through the book, the large entries are typically insurance. Granddad's insurance every year was $59.
Oh my gosh.
Grandma's insurance was paid twice a year and was $28. So you look at what the cost, what was the focus?
Right.
They always had to have that insurance.
Always paid.
And as we look through the book, I have found many entries where she might not have enough money to make ends meet, so she might borrow from her dad to pay for the groceries and to, pay for the dresses and the shoes and that
Right.
kind of thing. But look at this. Even though things were tight, this is an entry of all the bonds that were
that's
purchased.
incredible.
How much, even a lot of the serial numbers or the C numbers or E numbers are
Yes.
still registered in here.
That's beautiful.
I mean, like in some months, they might buy 3 war bonds. Keep in mind, in those days, this is Depression.
Yes.
They didn't buy, goodness. One time I had a conversation with my granddad that maybe he should look at cashing in some savings bonds
Right.
and go for CDs. Let me tell you, that conversation did not go well, and we never had another, because it was their patriotic duty
That's right.
to buy those savings bonds. And I'm sure Joe, you have served, and
bet.
so you understand that patriotism.
I definitely do, Ruth. And I was thinking about my own history, and basically when I joined the Air Force, way back in 1968, during
Way
the
back.
Vietnam era, right? During the Vietnam era, looking at these entries, they really make a lot of sense to me, because my first automobile, brand new, it was a Datsun. It used to be called Datsun 240Z, one of those little sports cars, right? $2,400. I mean, can you imagine $2,400 for a brand new car? Today, that same automobile, I priced them.
Yeah.
They're close to $80,000.
Yeah,
The
brand
same
new.
brand. I mean, look at inflation.
We see it every day, and sometimes we're blind to it because we don't realize it. It just happens, a couple pennies here, a couple pennies here, and so when that rises over the years, just like your grandparents did, they were smart to invest money, because inflation's going to happen no matter what we're going to say. It's always going to happen no matter what happens in life, but we have to be prepared, not only education-wise, but financially-wise, by making sure your money's earning for you to stop some of that inflation for retirement.
What I'm getting from all this right now, Ruth, is that we teach people how to get ahead financially. And I think you and I have talked about this before. And the number one rule that we tell our clients is to pay themselves first. And that's exactly what I've been seeing here, that your grandparents, they had expenses just like everybody else has. However, though, they took the discipline
Yes.
to pay themselves first. And you have the proof of that because they bought all kinds of bonds right here.
Absolutely.
So they were paying themselves first. It doesn't matter what expenses they had. The number one priority was to save,
Yes.
to invest, to pay themselves first. Otherwise, they would be working for nothing.
Right.
Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And you have to remember, they were farmers. They didn't have pension. They didn't have a company paying 401k.
Good
They,
point.
they didn't have anything else to fall on. It was up to them.
Besides paying themselves first, I think the number one investment, the best investment that people could make, and that were making it back then, was actually to get a home. And not just to get a home, but to pay it off. That generation had their homes free and clear. Their home was paid for. Nobody could take it away from them.
Right.
Okay, so to me, that speaks volumes. Because see, in 1930, they had inflation too.
Yeah.
And you know what? They had expenses. They had bills to pay. But the number one priority was themselves, to pay themselves first and to own their home free and clear. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. In those days, the mortgage company or the banks in those days were almost like the bad people.
Yes.
Because they were the ones that could come and take the roof
That's right.
that was over your head. They could take it away
They
from
called
you.
a loan on you.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, this sheet here is an auction item sheet
Okay.
that showed, remember, this was a family farm that Granddad ran, and he was the executor of this farm. But after great-granddad passed, the other siblings decided it was time to liquidate.
I see.
He needed to sell the farm, sell all of the equipment, and make the divisions amongst the family. It wasn't that he was selling because he didn't own the property,
Right.
but for different reasons. They had
Right.
bigger families, and so it had to be
Divvied up
That's
almost, yep.
exactly right. Now, I remember when I bought my first home. And I called Granddad because I needed a little bit of extra help,
Yep.
maybe, with some of my down payment.
Yep.
And Granddad was so proud of me to think that I was in my late 20s and I was already buying my first home.
I love that.
Then I explained to Granddad that I was putting a mortgage on it. And Granddad was, I mean, it was, you could have heard a pin drop. I could tell I had disappointed him. And I thought, well, maybe if I explained to him that in the tax bracket that we were in, I needed mortgage interest as a tax deduction.
Yes.
Well, now I'm going to tell you what he called me.
Oh no.
But you have to remember that was the time.
Yes.
Granddad called me a communist and told me I was no better than a communist because I wasn't paying my fair share of taxes. So you think about their mindset that they have here and where they were in the 30s versus where I was when I was purchasing my first home in the 70s. Just in that period of time, he got stuck
Yes.
in the Depression era and never moved forward into other thought processes of other opportunities and how the world changes.
And that is such a brilliant point to bring up. I mean, different generations, we have different mindsets. I mean, and so that follows through with our finances, with what we do with our investments, and so that is so unique. But hopefully you got the house, right? You ended up getting the house, and that's beautiful because.
And let me tell you what my interest rate was.
Well, what's that?
16%.
Oh my gosh!
So don't sit here and cry to
No.
me about what's going on
Right.
because we bought our first home, it was 16%.
I always say that
That's amazing.
interest rates used to be 9% double digits, and so we're so used to 1 or 2 and getting so
We got
excited
spoiled.
about it. But yeah, that's the thing. We got spoiled with low interest rates.
Yeah,
So
you know, my first home that I bought in the 1970s was at 9%. Wow. 9%.
Yeah.
My second home, you know, when I came here, was 6%.
yeah.
And today, well,
It was,
before the
yeah.
inflation crept
Right.
up, it was like 2%, right?
We saw it dip.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can't keep
Crazy.
on going down to
Absolutely.
zero.
Yeah.
It's got to go somewhere up. So
You know, one thing that I really am impressed with this ledger, Ruth, is not only the savings and investment that your grandparents did by paying themselves first,
yes.
but look at the safety that they had. Do you see anything here that says stocks? I only see bonds.
Right.
Yeah.
Bonds are just almost like
Insurance,
guaranteed. Bonds and insurance. Think about that.
Right.
Safety. You know what happened in the 1930s? The market crashed,
That's
right?
right. The Great
So-
Depression.
They were smart enough to say, we want to keep our money safe. And this is the way that we feel today in 2023 with our clients. We feel that they got to keep their money safe. And that's why we specialized in products and strategies that has nothing to do with the stock market, nothing to do with the economy. Okay? It's a product like a bond, maybe perhaps a little bit better than a bond because it grows faster, but it's safe and it's going to guarantee what you really need at the end, which is a guaranteed income, a guaranteed paycheck for the rest of your life.
So with what we deal with is not only educating viewers like yourself, and we appreciate you coming back to the channel, liking, subscribing, but it's also taking that next step. If you want your money to start working for you, you want to put your money safe aside, no risk from the stock market losses, and do what Ruth's grandfather did, which is really just pay themselves first and get their foot in the right direction, give us a call or go to the link below. And this is a great way for you to take your first step. We'll call you, we'll talk to you, and just see where you're at. If you have debts to pay off, we'll focus on paying debts off. If you have investments that are at risk, we'll help put your money at places that it's not going to lose when the market crashes. I want to thank you, Ruth, really for coming out and really sharing this history with your family and with the audience. I mean, this is crucial information with inflation, just what's happened in this country and what's going to continue to happen because it's not going to change when it comes to inflation. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being my client.
Absolutely.
I do treasure that, just like we treasure every single client that we have. We appreciate your knowledge, and thank you again for bringing this. This is really an heirloom, and it's amazing. It's amazing, and it's so timely for today's economy. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Well, I'm Jordan Quijano. We want to thank you for tuning in. Please again, subscribe, like the channel. Go ahead and hit that notification for the next video.
And thank you so much for watching the video. And look out for the next video, please, because we're going to be talking more about education and how to get ahead financially during this economic storm that we're facing and will be facing for a long time. Thank you.